Triumph Cars was once one of the biggest British automobile brands of its time, creating cars like the Dolomite, TR6 and 7, and of course the legendary saloons. The darling of late 60s motoring under British Leyland would see its decline accelerated to the point of overspeed. Car after car cancelled. But there was one car that some have said could have led Triumph to recovery. The legendary lost Triumph SD2. The companion model to Rover's SD1. The medium-sized car to replace the Dolomite and one of British Leyland's biggest mistakes. The cancellation of a winner so late in its project life, essentially being cancelled right before it could have made a difference. This is the story of one of the biggest BL blunders of all time. This is the story of the Triumph SD2, the car that could have changed everything, and how a promising British car became another massive strategic error. Hello everybody and welcome to this video on the mysterious Triumph SD2, one of the greatest missed opportunities in British motoring history. If you're not subscribed already, please make sure to do so. It really does help me out and you get to see more of this. More history videos, more cars and classics uncovered, and more projects. This video, of course, is on one of the greatest Triumphs never produced. Do you have any opinions on the Triumph SD2 or any British Leyland memories? Let me know in the comments below. Do you think this could have been a winner? Make sure to like the video if you liked it and share if you want other people to see it. But without further delay, let's get into this video on the Triumph SD2. To understand the SD2, we need to go back to the beginning. Back in 1968, a behemoth had just formed, British Leyland. But immediately, the lofty company ran into issues. A huge range of cars with some brands crying out for investment. But the issue was there were so many doing just that. And to invest in all these brands wasn't exactly cheap. Rover, the anti-turned-innovator with its stunning P6, was working on the Rover P8. Triumph were working on their next series of cars as well. Austin Morris needed something to compete with the new wave of Fords, hammering their market share in the fleet world. There were many successes, but many gaps as well, and as the months rolled on, the competition got more fierce, both internally and externally. Triumph and Rover, two brands locked in a head-to-head battle in the early 60s, with the saloon car showdown, now found themselves awkward bedfellows, thanks to their acquisition by Leyland and later BLMC. But this wasn't the end for the warring pair. Triumph and Rover would battle it out again, but on a much smaller, yet more consequential stage, the boardroom. With so many projects and resources dwindling, BL needed to take decisive action to steady the ship, so all projects were on the chopping block, except Jaguar of course. Rover's plans of the Grand P8, a car to advance the driving experience even further, were cancelled, thanks to funding, politics, and an unfortunate crash test sealing the deal. Rover would need to come up with a more conventional car that fit neatly under Jaguar's offering. Triumph and Rover would be combined into the Specialist division, and in 1969 they would both create proposals to battle for the next generation of British saloons, Rover with the P10 and Triumph with its Puma. The Puma would lose to the Rover P10, and from the P10 came the Specialist Division's first car, the Rover SD1. But the Specialist Division's car created a bit of a gap in the range. As good as the Dolomite was, it didn't quite fit this new range. After all, it was born years earlier, and would be in need of a refresh by the time the Rover SD1 would hit the scene. It was decided that another Specialist Division car would be explored. They had the Triumph name to think about as well. With its sporty heritage, it would be perfect for the medium car segment. The new car, SD2, would consolidate the massive line of engines and transmission options as well, making the range of small saloons much leaner, solving another problem that was a drain on the company's finances. Capitalising on the premium name, the SD2 would be signed off by Triumph management in May 1972, with Malcolm Harbour at the helm of the team. SD2 would follow the exact same concept as the SD1, conventional and rational, with groundbreaking style and features, like its bigger brother. Rationalisation was something that BLMC desperately needed, and the SD1 and SD2 combo would create the ultimate package of premium cars. Components, facilities and manufacturing techniques would be shared, reducing the cost of production and development exponentially. Under the skin, the SD2 would follow the same technical doctrine as the SD1. The suspension would be conventional McPherson struts with coil springs and cartridge type dampers at the front, with a single lower link, an anti-roll bar, and a shared front subframe with the Triumph TR7. The rear would be another live axle arrangement with two trailing arms and a Watts linkage. To absorb torque reactions in the drivetrain, the axle nose would be extended and coupled to a crossmember. Telescopic dampeners and coil springs would finish off the rear setup, all being very similar to its bigger brother, the SD1. The engines and drivetrains is where it got a bit complicated. For the SD1, the 3500 occupied the top end. The Buick-derived V8 was as smooth as ever, even though it was years old by this point. And to fill the lower end of the SD1, they had the 2300 and 2600, powered by the Leyland inline 6-cylinder PE166 that was currently in development. The SD2 would attempt to capitalise on the new 6-cylinder engine's development, as options were explored within Rover Triumph to create a 4-cylinder version, with prototypes built and tested. All was going extremely well. It was appearing completely rational, which was a change from the usual antics of the time. Marketing, though, had to have their say, of course, over engineering and project planning. They suggested that SD2 couldn't form an effective replacement for the Toledo and 1500 TC in its current form, so it was decided to bring it down market a bit, and add the 1500 TC's power unit as an entry-level option, but this would only be available in the UK, a perfectly rational decision from the team. Despite the additional input, the programme was still going well. Internally, BLMC were raving about the fact it was cheaper than the Audi 80, Alfa Romeo Alfetta and BMW 3 Series, all with minimal investment by BLMC. In addition, it was predicted this segment would be the most rapidly growing in the next 5 to 10 years. The programme's analysts also looked at the internal competition, to try and stop the usual BLMC blunder of competing with oneself. The SD2 complemented Austin Morris, but didn't push up against the SD1, and of course, didn't get anywhere near the golden child Jaguar. By 1973, the programme had its development and introduction timelines stamped out. It appeared this was really happening. Triumph would finally have its day in the sun in the mid-range. By the end of December 1974, engineering would be finished. In October 1976, pre-production would start. In June 1977, volume production would start. By October of the same year, it would launch, the 2-litre models at least. By January of the next year in 1978, the UK launch of the O Series models, and 2 months later in March, the European launch of the O Series models as well. The O Series would complicate things, however. The car would need a few more months of engineering, pushing the timelines out, but this was fine. They could lean on that slant 4 for now with the 1800cc and 2000cc options. The styling would be ratified, with the baby SD1-like appearance fitting perfectly into the lineup, the hatchback adding practicality, the futuristic wedge shape, and the flush moulded front end looked the part. Michelotti would pen his own version as the Dolomite facelift, but this would be rejected. Pininfarina would also have a go with their much more radical design. This would also be rejected, with the in-house designed SD2 winning out. The top-end models would end up with a few enhancements on the outside, including these rear louvres, adding a futuristic appearance. The styling would finally be signed off in 1973, looking much more like the early 90s than the early 70s. The product plan at this point would see the SD2 as a world car, with it being offered in all BL overseas markets aside from Australia, New Zealand and South Africa, which all had their own homegrown alternatives either in plan or being produced. The SD2 was to be lower volume, with around 83,000 sold per year, but highly profitable according to internal documents and studies. It seemed though at this point, after much favourable testing and optimism, management would get cold feet after another comparison against the Audi 80 and Opel Ascona. It would then be found the car wasn't going to be highly profitable, it would be negligible, completely contradicting themselves with their own studies. And this is the point when the SD2 would truly come off the rails. After much management scrutiny, it was decided to cheapen the car, which went against everything it was striving to be. The axle and transmissions would be on the chopping block first, with the internal team asked to see if the Marina 2's in-development components could be used. As frustrating as this may sound, this wasn't just a turning point for the SD2, it was a turning point for BLMC. Its situation at the time was absolutely dire. Strikes crippling production of its most profitable models, projects running over, pressure from the now established foreign brands, and the defects piling up. It was natural they would seek to cut cost. The car logistically was shaping up well in spite of the engineering costs. BL would use the existing plant for the Dolomite, with the body built in Liverpool Wood End, and final paint, trim and assembly in Canley. It was then found that it would cost BL an additional £20 million to refurbish these plants for the SD2. But if the Stag's uncertain future caused it to cease production, the Stag's production lines could be commandeered and used instead, negating the need for this substantial investment. It appeared the SD2 had a way out, but at this point, disaster would strike. A seismic event for the whole company. In December 1974, British Leyland would see a catastrophic financial collapse. And with the Ryder report calling the company's operations into question, it really did feel like the end was nigh, not just for the SD2, but the entirety of British Leyland. The accountants would then take aim at the project. It was decided the team needed to make savings wherever possible. The gearbox would be changed to the LT77 from the SD1, alongside the BW 3-speed auto. Production targets would then be slashed to £50,000 per year, but the price hiked for profitability, all while reducing the substance of the car itself. By 1975, the car was watered down again to keep it alive, sharing many components with the already watered down ADO77 Marina 2. But this couldn't save the SD2, and by the spring of that year, it was officially cancelled. After almost making it to production, the only specialist division Triumph would see its end. Unfortunately though for the SD2, this wouldn't be the end, not quite. In the new world of BL post-Ryder, inter-department collaboration was encouraged. Triumph reached out of their specialist division and joined Morris on the TM1 project, finalised in September 1975. Triumph and Morris were to create a new car, and with the SD2's body still warm, it was decided they could attempt to resuscitate, with an even more watered down version, which was a bonus since several prototypes had already been produced. The new TM1 would be moved towards front wheel drive to fit in against the other middle market competitors, but the SD2 hadn't been conceived for this. It was meant to go head to head against BMW. The rest of the team, Spen King and Gordon Bashford, were working on a new car, which would later become the LC10, Austin Maestro. The TM1 would fade into the background and be cancelled, ending the SD2's fight for freedom, with another opportunity lost. The SD2 was the last roll of the dice for Triumph, in terms of interest by its parent company in the segment. Sadly neglected in one of the markets it had almost taken over in the early 1960s. Triumph's mid-ranger was the perfect car for the specialist division to complement its SD1, but thanks to factors both internal and external, it would be a future unrealised. With British Leyland bleeding cash and credibility, it would see itself watered down more and more, to the point where it had been diluted too much to be a credible option for the ailing company, ending another potential hit with a miss. Of the several prototypes of the SD2, only one survives, LUL 79P, preserved at the British Motor Museum. What is your opinion on the SD2? Do you think given the time and resources it could have been a hit, or was it just another BL money hole project? Let me know in the comments below. But as always, thank you for watching. Keep watching and remember to subscribe for more of this, and I'll see you in the next one.